Is this the dream that we're living in, or what we call each day? The dream even though we feel awake, because we're searching for an answer and for what you just might say. So tell me please somehow, is this the dream? Podcasting from a town called Manalapan, New Jersey, this is That Oneness Guy, a podcast covering the many aspects and elements that embody oneness. I am your host, Danny Rongo, and yes, I am that oneness guy. As an author, a singer-songwriter, and a podcaster, I continue to share my message of oneness. So as I like to say, my friends, let's get right into podcasting. If you've been following along here in season 4, you know that I'm highlighting a very specific theme. I've been reaching out to fellow humanitarians, if you may, authors and artists who, in their own unique way, are advocating in the name of giving back. And you all know how much that means to me personally. Now, these individuals are taking measures to help society, to help me, to help you, and to help our world in general, and to add awareness to the constant rise in oneness that we're all getting to witness. Now, they accomplish this in many ways through their words, through their message, and their actions. And my guest for this latest episode falls perfectly into these categories. So let me tell you a little about my friend, Jeremy McDonald, otherwise known as the Storytelling Alchemist. All right. An accomplished Reiki Master, touch practitioner, spiritual healer, and teacher, Jeremy McDonald has been a public speaker for 24 years and has designed and delivered many workshops to assist individuals, helping them find peace and joy in their lives. Looking from an inside soul perspective, they are able to overcome fears, alchemizing them into love. That's beautiful. I love that. Now, with Jeremy's extensive experience, he has helped his clients find balance, peace, joy, and true sublime self-love. For accolades of the world, Jeremy is a Reiki Master, EFT practitioner, a Theta healing practitioner, and a holistic life coach. He has served as a keynote speaker for expos, colleges, professional conferences, and to just a small workshop in a living room. Jeremy is the show host of the online radio show Soul Talk, which airs on LA Tribune TV, on Blog Talk Radio, and V109 FM. Topics discussed on his show include the transitory experience of knowing one's soul from an inner perspective. His guests range from spiritual practitioners, scientists, medical doctors, musicians, and artists having conversations of the soul, coming together to enjoy the rewards of a soul driven by spirit and guided by an awareness of the self. And I am proud to say that I was honored to be Jeremy's guest just a few months ago. So I highly urge you all to please check out his show. Again, as you know, I will be sharing all of this contact information with you a little later. But for now, my friends, please say hello to the Storytelling Alchemist, Jeremy McDonald. Jeremy, how are you, my friend?
Good, Danny. How are you?
I'm well, my brother. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on board. And again, thank you for having me on Soul Talk. It was awesome. I love the experience and I loved sharing my story with your wonderful listeners. And that's why I just needed to return that wonderful favor and have you here on That Oneness Guy podcast. So I welcome you, my friend. Again, how have you been? Everything good, Jeremy?
Well, first of all, thanks so much. It's a real honor to be here. And I've been great. I've been keeping, as we were talking about before we came on the show, very, very busy. So, and one thing is I know is that spirit has to be guiding me and helping me, because some days, I don't know if you have this feeling, you get through the end of the day, you feel very fulfilled, and then you're like, how did I make it through that whole day?
How'd I get through it, right? It's like something's helping us, Jeremy. I don't know. Sometimes, well, hey, listen, all of us are going through it, and there's like many days, like we've talked about in the past too, Jeremy, that I don't know how I've gotten through it, and you know, you can attest to that, right?
Yeah, well, and I think that's what we have to do. We have to really rely on whatever you want to call it, the universe, spirit, I call it
Yes.
spirit. You know, if you pray to God, whatever you want to refer to it as, it doesn't matter. There's a force helping you. And
Awesome.
so, and you know, and when we turn to that and ask it for help, like I'll even say some days when everything looks like a mess, I'll be like, put this all in divine order. And so the reason why I say that is because, you know, this mind, that physical mind, tries to figure it out, and then it gets stressed out.
Yeah.
And so if I rely on something that I know is going to bring it into order for me and make it easier for me to digest, then that relieves a lot of stress. And
Yeah.
so, and people got caught up in this conversation though, because they think that we're saying we're not acting on things, and that has nothing to do with it. You're acting on it though in divine order.
Exactly.
And so, yeah,
Exactly. Which is totally different. So Jeremy, listen, I like my listeners to get to know you as best as can. So in your own way, as long or as short as you'd like to, why don't you tell my listeners how you came to this point in your life to be where you are right now, as you say, as a coach, as a practitioner, and just as a spiritual advisor.
well, I think for me, it's been an all life thing. It's all my life. I've been in some form of spiritual practice, even when I was a kid. My
Mm-hmm.
mother was searching for her spiritual, peace in her life, I guess is the best way to put it. We started off in a very strict Christian church, and then
Okay.
we left. She actually left before I did. I kept on going with my grandparents for a while, and then many years later, I was probably, well, I guess I was probably, yeah, I was about 23 or 24 years old. My mother
Mm-hmm.
started going to a women's intuitive group, and I thought she was insane, to be quite honest with you. So, and then I started going with her to different groups and learning from that. But I've always had this sense of going and learning and growing because I thought it was fascinating. It wasn't until about 2006 that I had a substantial amount of things in my life fall apart, I guess is the best way to put it.
Ain't that
And
always the case, Jeremy? Doesn't
yeah,
it always just sound like, like no matter how many people I'm sure that you've had on your show, everyone that I've had on my show, there's that catalytic moment, or that aha moment is like we would like to call it. Something typically happens. So go ahead. Well, and what was that?
well, basically, I mean, I was the vice president of a mortgage company out of Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And then I left that very shortly and went to another job and lost that roughly about a month later. And not far from where you're at, it was in Horsham, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And so I lost my relationship, lost my home, lost my car. I mean, this everybody's heard this story. It's I'm no different than anybody else. And that was right. Everybody says the recession happened in 2008. It actually
Mm-hmm.
started roughly about 2006 and started gradually building into all the things going on in 2008. Well, at least for me, it started in 2006. And so I pretty much 2006 to 2010, well, actually 2006 to 2009, I went without work. I couldn't find a job to save my life. And I'd get contract jobs, or I'd be doing other things, and I've somehow made money, but it was very challenging years. And so, but what it did for me, though, Danny, is that I was able to finally do something. Now, the subtle difference of what I mentioned before is I was always looking at things because I thought they were cool and fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Now I had to start all those things that I studied, all the psychology and the spiritual and the metaphysics and the religion and all the things I've studied. Now I started looking and say, well, there's something in here. I've always found this fascinating. So what do I need to take from this to help me grow?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Well.
these years and years and years of studying, but never necessarily practicing. And so it takes what I call a cosmic 2x4 upside the head
Love that, by the
to,
way.
and so to really wake you up. And
Yeah.
so, and then you have these major aha moments where you really start growing. And so I really started doing the work. And then I got basically an entire new group of friends and people in my life that we started practicing with each other.
Wow.
The principles and one of the principles is Never take anything personally.
Okay.
If you got one finger pointing out in judgment, you got three pointing back at you.
I'm just curious. Let me interrupt for a second. Were these existing friends, or were these people that, for one reason or another, just gravitated towards you?
They
Just
gravitated
curious.
towards me, and we were going through the similar lessons.
Interesting. Very cool.
And so
Right.
what we did is we made agreements to tell each other the truth.
Nice.
You know, hold each other accountable. And what it was is that if we had a block or something, we would tell each other.
Yeah.
And so it really became quite beautiful. And I'm still friends with a good majority of them today. And that's roughly 11, 12 years ago, and we're still friends. And that doesn't
Nice.
always happen in life.
No, it does
And
not.
so we grew this amazing network of people. And but what more importantly is when you start holding yourself accountable, when you stop pointing fingers out at people, you find peace in yourself. And so I've started to find this at that point in time, a part of my life where I'd stopped going. I was not in depression anymore. I was having probably the most fun I've ever had in my life. I felt joy, and I felt fulfillment, even in a job that I really I would have not cared for before.
Mm-hmm.
I was given a job that I really didn't do anything. I got paid to sit. And so I got paid to sit in front of a computer and take one call per hour that lasted about 3 minutes. So
Wow.
that seems like it would be really boring, except remember, I'm practicing all these things to find peace in my life. And so during that time frame, I was able to read online books and grow. And I actually wrote my first book there. And so, the universe gifted me this 3 years of time to grow. And so, and really work on myself. And so it took me a while to really realize what I was doing. But what we're doing is we're taking our thoughts, because a lot of us have grown up with this: I'm not good enough, I'm a sinner, I'm not attractive enough, I don't have the body that I need, I don't have enough intelligence, everybody has a better degree than me.
Yeah, the victim role.
Yeah, the victim role. And so what we're doing, and the process of changing that, is to flip what I call flipping the script. And so that's what I started doing, as I started flipping the script. And I'd always give love to everybody else, but not necessarily myself. So I started standing in front of the mirror and telling myself that I loved myself.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of me, people I was dating, instead of, all the terms of endearment, I started using in my inner world with myself. And so, some people would say, well, that seems narcissistic. And I'm like, narcissistic means that you have no concept of compassion for other people, or love, or giving to other people. And you want to put other people down because you feel insecure about yourself. People think narcissists are like egomaniacs or something like that, they're really very insecure people. And so, but if you look at yourself and give yourself love, then there's the old saying that your cup runneth over. And basically you give that as much love as you give to yourself, you'll give to other people.
Exactly.
It'll be natural. And so that's where we flip that script, and we realize that all the things we've been taught by people that didn't know any better, that we can now change this, and we can live this life of joy. And so, and then the other thing that happens is people do start leaving your life. And why do they leave your life? Because they can't live where you're at. I mean, I've had people get upset because I'm happy. I mean, or not getting upset, and those things. And so that was kind of the moment where I started growing into this. And that took, when you really think about it, about 4 or 5 years of being miserable, but working on myself. And then finally realizing, wait, I don't have to do this anymore. It is a choice to be happy.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Bravo, my friend. That's so true. And that's a simple statement, which my listeners hear from me all the time. It's a choice, right? Right, Jeremy? It's a choice.
Yeah. And you mentioned something really powerful. We overcomplicate stuff. I was overcomplicating it. Sure. And it took me until that aha moment where this is really not hard. And I'm just making it hard. And so, and then all that, the attraction about how we attract our world and create our world, that's actually very easy too. The problem is that we're very attached to outcomes and what we think we should have to have. And there's a great saying that I always say, every time you think you want something, you look at it and you say that or better.
Yeah.
And what you're telling the universe is you're saying, listen, this is what I think I want, but because you have a higher vantage point than I do, then if you see something better, I'm good with that. You know, and so, but you cannot be attached to the outcome. And that's what, and then there's the old saying that, you know, count your blessings. And so we're always looking at, a lot of times in the old way of thinking, we were looking at everything that was going wrong. But now, why not look at all the cool things that are going on? You know, like,
which is a choice in itself as well,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
We can look at the, you know, at the rain outside on any given day and feel bummed out about it, or just accept it and say, okay, I'm going to move on.
Yeah. Even the most traumatic, like we had an experience the other day where the water backed up into my roommate's room, and it was about an inch thick of water. And
wow.
Of course there was some things that happened. I mean, she lost some things and that wasn't great, but we laughed all day long. I mean, beyond all the initial shock, you know, and then we started having a good day. You know, it was actually a good day. You know, nobody wants to sit there with shop vacs and clean up water, of course.
No.
But it's one of those things where it's you can turn something that is traumatic into something that has a positive outcome.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, don't ignore things. Don't be a, you know, one of those people either. You know, but it's one of those things where you face it, you do what you have to do, and then you find the positive in it. And so you just keep moving forward.
That's great. So this is what led you up to what you're doing now. Because I've wondered, and I don't think that we've actually discussed it, but I'm just curious, how did you come across your moniker, the Storytelling Alchemist? It's got to be something to this, Jeremy.
Well, it's
Let
funny.
it on.
I was talking with our mutual friend, and we were sitting down having a chat, and I kept on saying that everything happens in the story. And so, and you know, and when we do that, and I just given a lecture called Spiritual Alchemy Activating the Light Body at a conference that we were both at. And I said, but everything comes down to the story. So we tell ourselves a story inside of ourselves. And so whatever that story is, it could be I'm the victim, or I'm the millionaire, or I'm abundant, or, you know, I'm always sick, or whatever. It doesn't really matter what the story is. But what ends up happening is every time something happens to you, there's a stimulus. There's some kind of, we're having a conversation right now. So that's stimulus for both of us and your listeners. And so then within that story, or that stimulus, then a story starts forming, whatever it is. It could be like, this guy's crazy, he has know what he's talking about, or it could be, you know, oh my God, he so inspired me, whatever. And so that story starts to form, and then emotions start forming around it. And then the last thing that happens is you start acting on those emotions within the actual world, and energy starts creating around that. So what we went into is that you can change the story. You can change it right at the story before it becomes emotions, before it actually starts manifesting into the reality. And so our mutual friend said, well, you love alchemy and you're talking about changing the story. It's Storytelling Alchemist. And so you know her, she's really good at that kind of stuff. And so,
oh yes.
And so we came up with the name, and it resonates because it works not only in my spiritual business, but when I go into businesses, I can say, well, you can when I'm teaching sales reps, I can say, well, you can transmute or change your mindset here. The reason why you're not selling is because of your mindset. You're going through the mechanics of it, but you're unwilling to ask for that sale at the end. And because of that is because of some kind of doubt, or you prejudged, or you built a story in your mind that said this person's not going to buy from me. And so you can use that same principle in everything. And what holds us back is whatever story we're telling ourselves, you know.
And it's always something, right?
Yeah. If I had an audience in front of me, I'd be like, who in here has ever had a time when they wanted to ask somebody out on a date, men and women, but it held you back because you thought you didn't have something that you needed in order to get that date? Or who in here didn't go for that promotion or that business idea because you felt like you were missing something and it would keep you from being successful. That's a
Exactly.
story you're building inside of yourself that says you don't have. And I know I've done the same story. And I remember, because I didn't think I would be successful in this business at all, because all my friends were doctors and PhDs and MDs and, you know, former corporate executives and all that other kind of stuff. And then I just thought, here I am, just some kid from Minnesota. And when I had that epiphany, I realized, wait a second, I'm 42 years old. I'm not a kid anymore. I've been doing this a while. And so, and I know everybody else has had that aha moment where they realize, wow, I'm actually an adult here. I've actually been a corporate trainer since I was 22 years old, 20 years. And here I am thinking I'm still like some kind of schlep, you know, sleeping in the morning, playing video games. I still sleep in the morning and play video games sometimes, just not as much as I did when I was 22.
Not as much. Well said.
But it's just one of those things that's the story that we tell ourselves. And we come up with all these ideas that, here's another one. I'm now an adult. I can no longer do, you know, I have to be serious. I have to pay my bills. I can't let loose a little bit. Yeah, of course, there's a thing called being grounded in your actual life. So you make sure you pay your bills on time. You put some money aside for your future. You go to your job on time, or you meet your commitments, all that kind of stuff. But there's nothing in there that says that you can't go out and dance at a nightclub, even at 65 years old. Trust me, I see them, and they go out and dance and they let loose. Now, maybe not something they want to do. They may not have any interest, but if they do, why not go? Yeah. And that's the thing, is we hold ourselves back because we build something in our mind that prevents us from
exactly. Well, obviously, dance can be used as, as the metaphor there. It doesn't have to be, obviously, it doesn't have to be dance. But, like when we look at the opportunities that we face at different stages of our lives and start to tell ourselves the stories, like you're saying, why we shouldn't or why we can't do something like that, that's basically what we're doing, is getting, the wrong stuff in our heads. And we're telling ourselves these stories. Like you said, you've done it. I've done it countless times. There's times when I still do it, Jeremy, you know what I mean? Because like we all have like levels of doubt, I guess, to some degree about what we're doing and why we're doing it, if we're good at it and why or not. Yeah. So these are human instincts, like to face on a daily basis. But like what I always say is, if we listen to our gut, listen to our intuition, which is never steering us wrong, that's our silent partner. I've been on a kick recently putting out my posts and images that have, something about intuition in it. But I think that's what helps us, because so many people don't necessarily pay the homage to it that I think, and that many people think that it deserves. We're not in this alone, Jeremy, right? We do have that silent partner. People call it guardian angels. That's fine. It's those intuitive nudges that when we feel them, and I've done it too in the past, we tend to cast them aside. We may view it as just something coincidental, which we know doesn't exist because there's no accidents in a perfect universe. But we, for most of our lives, we don't heed that inner calling. And if you're looking at something or addressing something in life, a new job, a new change or something, you're getting that voice, you're receptive, you're receiving those nudges and those feelings for reasons. So that's why I always say it's so important, my friends out there listening right now, like we're all telling these stories, to Jeremy's point, but we have to listen to what we're hearing. Listen to the voices, listen to the nudges.
And one of the ways to change that story is there is a great process I like to use. And a lot of people like to use affirmations, and that's only half of it. Sure. So the first thing you have to do is you have to change the program or cancel out the program that was there before, or the story, whatever you want to refer to it as. And so one of the things that's powerful with that is I call it, it's actually from the book, The Dynamic Laws of Healing by Catherine Ponder.
Okay.
And what she talks about is that, let's say I have a thought that pops into my mind that says that I'm unable to be loved for whatever reason that thought is in there. And then you say in your mind, no, I no longer believe in that. I deserve the best of everything, and I am loved, and I deserve the best love that's divinely given or led by my inner voice or whatever. But what you're doing is you're denying the energy or the thought, and you're saying to it, because remember, the brain fires neurotransmitters in it. So it has this habit that's been created to automatically go if you're rejected or whatever, to go, no, I can't have that. I don't have what it takes or whatever. Well, when you say no to that, and then you give the new thought or the new story that no, I deserve the best of everything, and I deserve love. I deserve the best kind of love, and it's coming and it's here. And so then what happens is the brain actually starts firing new transmitters.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And what happens is that the left hemisphere of the brain actually fires the transmitter, and then when it connects to the right side of the brain, then it becomes instinct. It doesn't become something that is I have to think about too much. So you're actually rewiring your brain by changing your thoughts and changing your story. So it's really powerful stuff.
I love that whole concept. I've been hearing a lot of that from Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh yeah.
Who's been going? I have so many of his videos like on my phone that I just listen to as I'm driving, and he talks a lot about how thoughts are the language of the brain, feelings are the language of the body. Now he's going into detail about how we need to envision our future, because most of our lives are drawn or taken from our past. That's how we are. That's how we are. That's how we are live. Basically, taking everything from our past, but to manifest that, we need to envision our future, and not just envision it. We need to feel it, because it's the feelings that will initiate the change when we address it. But he goes into so much detail about neuroscience, neuroplasticity, and on like how we're basically tricking the brain to act from something that does not exist, from the void, from the unknown. And just cool topics that I just love to hear about. And to me, it just makes sense, because I know that feelings have so much to do with when we talk about the word manifest. Like it's not enough to think it, to think about it. No, we have to envision. We have to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, as Neville Goddard said decades ago. And that, when you start to get into that, I know how hard that is, though, right, Jeremy? For like people to say, okay, I want this in my life. I could think about it, but what does it feel like? What does it feel like to be prosperous? What does it feel like to be healthy? What does it feel like to be loved for someone who's never loved in their life? Right? These are like concepts that for most people, it's hard to say, yeah, I can think about it, but what does it feel like? And I struggle it too with myself. So I'm like, okay, what does it feel like to have $20 million in my bank account? So I'm like, okay, probably doesn't suck. All right. But, is there a feeling? Like, to me, Jeremy, I say, yeah, there is. Because first of all, there's the financial freedom that has to bring something to that equation, right? You know that you'll never have, or hopefully never have, any kind of financial issues or problems at all ever again. So I think that has to lighten the load, right? That's a feeling that has to feel good. But I just love getting into a concept like that, of like that I know most people can't grasp, because we're thinking about things we want in the future, but now we know, like, to try and bring it to us faster in the world of manifestation, that we have to feel it. Different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I started doing is I started remembering what it was like to be 5. And remember when you were 5 and whatever toys you played with, I played with Transformers and G.I. Joe, so it's just my age range at the time. And, I'd have all these imaginations, or we'd play hide and seek. And when I was out at my grandfather's farm, they had this huge barn, and it was always so exciting, but I'd always get lost in this world of imagination. And so a couple things happened. One, years ago, I wanted to, the whole Lisa Nichols checks in the mail from The Secret. I wanted to see. I was like, well, does this actually work? So I had I started saying checks in the mail, $3,000, checks in the mail, $3,000. Now that in itself didn't necessarily give any emotions behind it, but I would do it first thing in the morning. And then what I would do is I would get that emotion, like when I was a kid, 5 or 6 or 3 or 4, and I woke up the morning of Christmas morning. And so
Yeah.
what happened when you're on Christmas morning, you were excited, you're way
Out of your mind, right?
you're out of your mind because all those toys were there. And then as I wake up and I start walking through my house, I have that feeling like I'm never turn the corner and the Christmas tree is going to be there. And it's going to have all these presents under it. And then I say in my mind and heart to the universe, surprise me. And then the release of that is because there's a release that you have to do when you're manifesting. And so keep in mind, I'm feeling all this, but I'm also saying checks in the mail, $3,000, checks in the mail, $3,000. So that actually happened. And that was, I had been doing that for about 2.5 weeks at that point. And then I actually got a check in the mail for $3,000.
That exact amount?
That exact amount. And so, but
Wow.
this isn't even the end of the story. So then I was working as a contract trainer for a company, and I flew up to Lexington, Kentucky to speak at a conference. And when I came back that Monday, they let me go. Now I'd only been, or they laid me off. They had, and I had to sign a severance package. Now I'd only been there about a month. They gave me a severance package for a month of salary.
Yeah.
So that wasn't quite $3,000, except for then 3 or 4 days later, I got another check in the mail for $3,000. And so I got 2 of them. I got 2 checks for $3,000. And then I actually, I didn't work for the whole summer, you know, like a day job. I was working on my business. And then I actually got a check in the mail from that previous job that they laid me off that said, we gave that position a raise, and so for the time that you worked, we're paying you. It was something like $600. I got in the mail. So what ends up happening is that, first of all,
that's odd. Who does that though nowadays?
Nobody. Nobody. That's why it's
no one
like
does
people,
that. Like,
people
why
say,
did we have to tell someone who we let go that we're now paying more money in the job that he had?
Right, and that's why it's a manifestation. And so it's one of those things where you have to start appreciating every little thing. And so so you're grateful for even the small things.
Yeah.
Like recently I got a $47 check in the mail. I still say checks in the mail, by the way. And so it's one of those things that you have to constantly be appreciative and grateful, even for these tiny little things. Like, you know, I think I had somebody marry me during that time, or I had somebody want me to marry them during that time frame, and that was a $300 check. So manifestation, and how I learned it from that time when it was really, I had a lot of trouble, because beyond that time, I've never went without work or something where, and it's that feeling of, you don't always have to have that feeling of what it feels like to have $20 million in the bank. Get that feeling like Christmas morning, and then you start saying it until you can get used to really getting into it. Now it's a lot easier for me. I've been practicing this for years. Now I'm actually going for the big stuff, because obviously I even still have some blocks for, you know, money. Everybody has them. It just depends on your level of perception. So right now I'm trying to manifest $30,000, you know, and it's, you know, but in one lump sum, or in a very short amount of time. And so, and then next day it might be 3 million or 300,000, you know what I mean? So it's, have fun with it. And then, so I know somebody out there is going to say it's not all about money. And you're right, it's not all about money, but money is just energy. And there's a reason why they call it currency, because currency is electrical and electrical is energy. So we're making this currency, or this energy, more stronger than us, or more powerful than us, but we're energy. We're electrical.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so there is the only difference is we have a sentient in us in this physical sense.
Yeah.
But now because we have that, we can actually bring that story in, and those emotions in, and instead of that story that tells you don't have enough, or you have to live like a poor person, now you can say, I don't. And one of my manifestations that for a long time was like, I'll always have enough and I'll always be able to go and do what I want. So for some reason, I mean, I may not have a lot of money in the bank, but some reason I always have enough to be able to do what I want.
Something always arises. You know what I mean,
Yeah.
Jeremy? And that's such a truth for me and my wife, especially because we're no different than everybody else. You know what I mean? Like we're always, like doing this, doing that, make ends meet. And there's always a time when we're like, oh, wow, it's going to be a little tight this month, right? Something always comes, something always turns, and that's not by accident either, right? Think about it. And I always like to say, getting back to money, is that, look at it more from like, it just gets recycled. What do we do? Like we earn so we can buy food and clothing. But as we're buying food, we're supporting the local farmers so they can keep creating and growing the food. So it just keeps turning hands. And plus, I've always said too that when you have these visions of tons of money and tons of money, you'd be more inclined to also help other people too when you do have larger amounts of money too. So it all works together. Money just gets recycled, and the old adage is we can't take it with us, which is true. So when we have excess, you're always like more inclined to tip better when you have a couple extra bucks in your pocket. You're always more inclined to give like more money to a cause online or to something. So it's there as a tool for us, is the way I like to look at it, but not from a negative connotation the way like certain people look at it. That's why I never have any doubts with like the people who, and we all know them, who have seemed to over life to either excuse my French, but they stepped in shit for one reason or another, and the money just finds them, and they find it. Why? Because they're constantly thinking about it, probably, and it is coming to them through their attraction, through their thinking about it, through their thought process. But good for them. This is an abundant universe. Why not wish for tons of money? Why not? I tell everybody, I said, get out of that old way of thinking, like, oh, I'm not worthy. What do you mean you're not worthy? We all are. Everyone is.
Well, there's also another thing where people are envious of other people.
Yes.
And that I had that situation.
And that's the victim role again. That's
Yeah.
people saying, "Oh, poor me." Well, that's on you then.
I had a boss that I worked with several years ago, and she always wanted to write a book, and she wanted to travel and do all these things. And she would always be like, "How have you done all these things in your lifetime?" And I'm like, "Well, you have something that I don't have. You have two wonderful children. You have a husband that you've been with for 25 years that adores you. I have never gotten those things. And so that frees up a lot of time not having children and a spouse. And so it's one of those things that, look at your blessings. You have blessings, it's just different. And so, and you could tell our relationship, we'd known each other for years until I started working with her, and we were constantly around each other. You could tell she would progressively get more and more angry with me. And I thought, yeah, and it got to be really bad towards, I worked for her for about 2 years, and it basically ruined any kind of friendship that we did have before. And
that's a shame.
Maybe it'll heal in time, but it really she would always say things like, how have you done these things? Like, I had a radio show, or, I've had that, and I've written a book, and I've traveled all over the country. Well, I mean, that's, I also didn't have a family, and sometimes it's not easy. I wouldn't imagine being a traveling corporate trainer would be easy, being in other states when your children are 5 states away.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. There's multiple sides to every story, like you said. Please. That's a shame people have to come across from that. How were you able to get this? It is what it is.
Well, and when you have that envy, you block your abundance.
Absolutely, you do. Yeah. Because you're coming from a place of lack.
Yeah.
And the universe doesn't recognize lack. It only recognizes what it is. So if you're out there touting that poor me card, so then the universe is responding, well, okay, if this is your thought process and this is your energy that you're emitting, well, then this must be what the universe has to give back, more of poor me. That's why I always tell people, don't ever come across with the adage or the affirmation like, I need more money. because you're saying the word need,
I need, yeah.
which is a lack. So the universe is going to say to that question, yeah, you do need more, but it's going to recognize a need, and that need is going to continue.
It's going to give you that feeling. You're going to continue playing out that story of needing.
Yeah, which is why I'm I still believe in, the I ams that we've talked about in the past.
I
I am
love the I
abundant.
ams in that movie, The Moses Code. I don't know if you ever watched The Moses Code.
I just know it from the Ten Commandments back when I was a little kid,
Yeah.
back when Charlton Heston was Moses, and then he walked up to the.
Oh,
Remember that? And
yeah.
like on that scene when he goes up to see the burning bush at top of Mount Sinai, and it happens to be the like the image of God, and God speaks to him, and he goes, "But God, when I get back to my people, they will ask me what your name is, and what should I tell them?" And that's when Moses says, I am that I am. Tell them I am sent me. So that's why I always say, when you talk about oneness, when you talk about being one with God, one with your source, is there anything that drives that point home more than knowing that many religions on this planet refer to your God or their God as I am? Because when you say I am, Jeremy, right? What are you saying? You're saying I am, me,
Yeah.
I am. So
Yeah.
you're associating yourself with your God or with your higher source. That's why I would say there can't be a better way to confirm, oneness.
Mhm.
That's why, to me, it means a lot. I've referenced it. I still reference it all the time. My books and every podcast episode, at least a few times.
I love the story with Neil Donald Walsh, where his teacher had told him to walk around and say I am that, and he thought he was crazy. And finally something has shifted in him, and it will when you start saying, because we're busy saying we're not that.
Right. Yeah.
And so when you start saying I am that, then you find something will shift in you, and you'll start seeing the blessings. You'll get that, you'll flip that script, so to speak, and change the dynamics of how you see things.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely. But Jeremy, listen, like I wanted to touch base too on because you have so many services that you offer. So why don't you give a recap or an overview of your exact services, what you do offer for our listeners here, so they can tune in, find out a little more.
Well, I do the best way to put it is I incorporate my coaching with energy healing. And I do also what I would refer to as past life regressions, but what I do is I can actually see the life that you're experiencing when you're regressed. And so I'm able to actually energetically hold space for you to help you shift whatever is causing blocks in this lifetime.
So do you have to be with a person in the same room for that, Jeremy, or
is
that
Zoom.
something you can do?
I do everything over Zoom. I do everything over Zoom. And I actually tell people that I like to call it we're taking a journey through your consciousness is probably a better way to put it than past lives, because you never know where the block is at, and really what it is it's karma. Something happened in a previous life, and it's causing a reaction within you in this lifetime, and it's helping, and you're basically building a story around that, and it's subconsciously, so we can release those things.
Wonderful. That's so cool. Yeah.
And bring them into oneness, and,
Thank you.
as opposed to being separate. And so I offer, for anybody that goes to my website, you can sign up for a free 15-minute consultation where we just do a meet and greet, get to know each other, and we'll see if we're a good fit for each other as far as coaching. And then I do offer like 1-month packages and stuff like that. Also on my website, there's a bunch of free stuff like my show. There's a whole audio file, where I talk about, finding peace within your life and abundance and peace in your life. There's quite a bit of cool stuff on there that I give away just for free. I'm just trying to, help people. So
awesome.
And then
again, no, go ahead.
I was saying my website's the Storytelling Alchemist. So.
Yes, I'll be going through all of that shortly. Because my listeners know that for this version here that we're seeing on this YouTube version, I always I'll be flashing stuff up as we're talking. That's after I edit this. but I'll be having all your sites up there too. I came across your book again, Peace Be Still. When did you write that? And if you can tell us a little about that. Was that the first book that you wrote?
That's the first book I wrote, and that was in
yeah.
2012. And I actually got it back from my publisher, and I self-published it in 2017 through Lulu. And so the idea behind the book was how I found peace in life. And so it's through that kind of, I give you the brief description of it at the beginning of the show. But the part I didn't give you at the beginning of the show is I was actually I was addicted to drugs. And so that I actually overcame that. And so this book is how I found peace in my life. And so, if you have any type of addiction, you're avoiding. It's avoidance.
That's
and
avoidance.
so, whatever you're trying to avoid, you have to get to the root of that. And then you might have a chemical addiction. Then that's a whole other thing that you have to go through. But the main thing is you have to get to the reason what you're avoiding, so that you don't relapse and go through that. And also keep in mind, everything we do in life is a journey. And it's all about choices. And so you have a choice in the beginning to change that. And if you didn't, and you went down that journey, you have a choice at some point to stop that. Now, I know yes, I agree with you that it's going to be a journey. It's not going to be like some people do quit smoking cold turkey, but not everybody has that.
Not everyone can do that.
Not everybody can do that. And so there is a path to doing that. I would recommend you get with a group of people that help you and support you. They're going through the same thing. But so the book is about, how I found peace in my life and the process I do to maintain that. And when I get out of alignment and not in peace, how do I get back into it? And so that's what my book is all about. So
I have to pick it up and I want to read it because
it's pretty easy to read. People say that they read it in like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. So
hey, wonderful. That's fine. I just love the title. I love the image that it instills in me. I mean, just from trying to still work my way through my own awareness, through my own journey. I love something along the lines of peace and be still, but because that's our ticket, brother. So Jeremy, listen, I'm going to put you on the spot here now. Okay. As we look to very shortly close out this episode, like I like to ask my guests something off the cuff here. It's simple. There's no right or wrong answers, and there's no length of an answer that I'm looking for. It's just totally up to you. But I like to put it to my guests in the form of a question. All right, my friend, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right. And the question is simple. It's why oneness?
Why oneness? I think that's a pretty simple answer, actually. You could actually throw it back as a question. Why not oneness? But right. If everything is energy, and energy is always flowing and interconnected, then it has to be oneness. Nothing is separate. And I know people get hung up on this thing where they're like, well, that makes me not an individual. Well, you are an individual. You're an individual within oneness. And in your individual experiences cause energy to move within oneness. And so, and that's pretty freaking cool. But it really just comes down to, it's very simple. We're all energy, and energy is not separate.
And it's not separate. Oh, it's wonderful, 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 my friend. All right, as we close things out again here, Mr. Jeremy, tell everybody where they can find you. Again, for my YouTube watchers, you're going to be seeing it all flash across here. And for on the podcast itself, I will be listing this in all of these sites and all of Jeremy's contact information within the podcast description. So tell my friends where to find the Storytelling Alchemist.
Very easy. It's the storytellingalchemist.com, and everything is there. There's links to my cruise. I have a cruise coming up where everybody can join me. I'm taking about 120 people to the Mayan ruins. And then also that's in February of next year. And
wow.
Then there's a also a link to my Healing Alchemy retreats, where I'm actually going to be taking people 5 days into Belize, to the Mayan ruins in Belize. And so that'll be very profound. That's in November of this year. So you can find.
And I recall, Jeremy, seeing somewhere like in the hidden language about that anyone who had me as their podcast guest is available to come on, right? Free of charge.
Oh, I don't know about free of charge, but you definitely are welcome to come. And but you can find all that at my website, storytellingalchemist.com, and links to all my social media. If you sign up for my newsletter, if you go to the bottom of my website, sign up for a newsletter, it'll actually give you a free gift, and it'll come back to you as well.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right. So for my friends out there, thank you again for listening to the podcast. I'm calling That Oneness Guy. This has been episode number 34, an interview with the Storytelling Alchemist, my brother in oneness and good friend, Jeremy McDonald. If you like what you've been listening to, please take a moment to subscribe to this feed. You can find That Oneness Guy on any and all of your favorite podcasting sites and apps. For my YouTube friends, I ask you again to please subscribe to my channel. That includes these podcasts, vlogs, and all of my many music videos, interviews, and performances. So please do subscribe. Just search for That Oneness Guy. You'll find me. And when we talk about social media, I am once again back in the world of Twitter and Instagram. Again, please just search for That Oneness Guy. And I always urge you to please take a look at my sites. For my first book, you can find everything at iamgodbook.com. For all of my endeavors, per se, music too, you can find at dannyrongo.com. And my newest site is thatonenessguy.com. And again, I'd like to remind you that my latest book, The Ways of Oneness, Helping to Navigate Life, is now available on Amazon in a Kindle version. So just visit Amazon for that and you'll find it. So for now, again, my friends, I'm Danny Rongo. I am That Oneness Guy. Please look for my next show. And as always, you know that I send you peace, love, light, and continued oneness. Namaste. Is this the dream that we're living in, or what we call each day? The dream even though we feel awake, because we're searching for an answer and for what you just might say. So tell me please somehow, is this the dream? Is this the dream that we're living in, or what we call each day? The dream even though we feel awake, we're searching for an answer and for what you just might say. So tell me please somehow, is this the dream?